Welcome back. Today we're finally going to take a look at the moderation UI and, make it look presentable and make people want to use it. Right, so before we dive in too deep, let's go ahead and take care of some issues that we have in our auth store. We'll go down to our login function. We will remove the bit that does the saving of where we were, because I had this stroke of genius to basically say, right, we're going to grab the return URL of the current address that we're at, and we're just going to pass it as the return URL to the login form, right? So we can just use the old return URL mechanism. So let's go ahead and grab the return URL, and then what we can do is we can grab in the console. We can just look at the location, and then we can encode URI component of something like location.href, and this will give us something that we can put as the return URI parameter. Right, so here's the beta code. Let's go ahead and assign it to this, and this is the bit that's going to be the query parameter, right? So let's go ahead and the login path, put it here. Next thing we want to say return URL will equal to return URL, right? And yeah, just basically redirect here. And now if we go to the login page, what we'll do is we'll say that this is required. Might not be the best decision, but the return URL should never be lost, to be honest. And yeah, because that's required, this is now going to be the case of yeah, just popping back to the return URL, and we no longer need the environment right here. Okay, let's put that back there. And another thing, let's go ahead and quickly copy this. We'll create a logout path where we don't really need the return URL. We're not going to be using that. Let's go ahead, scrap this. These bits right here, get that off, and we'll grab the logout path, right? So we're essentially just redirecting to the logout path. Let's go ahead and take a look at the auth controller and what is going to happen here. So we've already set up to just, well, basically to go back to the client or either the root address. So that looks fine. The place where we are interested in this is the default, what's it called? The default layout. So in the methods here, let's go ahead and map some actions from auth, and here we just want to select our logout function, and instead of not implemented, have this thing here, right? Let's go ahead and make this, put this on one line, right? Make it look pretty. A couple of other things that I quickly want to take care of to save us time in the future, to kind of like not scramble through them and not to meet errors. With headers here, let's go ahead and just say with or any header, because basically some additional headers are going to get added in different places depending on where we're posting forms and stuff like that. Just allow any headers, man. This is basically that's what you want. Next thing, we're going to go in the program, because we're going to be working with moderators, with the moderation screen and moderators and stuff like that. We want to be consistent when the application reloads. So this moderator that we seed, we want to make sure that we are, seeding the user for it. So let's go ahead and take this test user and move it up next to the user that we have here, right? So this test user is sort of created in this test user area. However, we're just going to do the same thing for the moderator. So let's go ahead, grab the mod. We'll put him here. And one thing that I did is in my www root folder, I've put a judge picture. So when I'm signed in, you're gonna know if I'm, or if you will be able to see behind my face here. There's a different image of a judge. So Judge Judy's from some American show. It doesn't matter. There's gonna be a different logo, right? So go ahead and put that there so you don't get confused what user you're on. Okay. Cool. Let's go ahead, hide that, and what we're going to do, we're gonna close all windows. We're gonna go into the index page of the moderation, right? So before we step into the actual moderation, the entrance has to be, bling and stuff like that, right? So we have buttons. Let's take a look at it, right? Take a look at the buttons, right? That's no way to walk into a castle, right? So let's go ahead, make a div here, and slow start, but we're gonna start with a vlist. So this vlist is going to contain a bunch of vlist items, right? And the vlist item is going to contain a couple of things, right? So list avatar, item avatar, this is where we're going to display the user icon. So we can do something like the icon, and for now we'll do mdi account. I think that will do that. Let's go ahead and grab these for loops that we have here with the URLs, and we're with the navigation with the keys and the iteration through the items, and we're going to put them on this vlist item here. Okay, so just to give it a little bit more substance, let's go ahead and we're going to step away from actually building this up to do something else in a second, but just so you sort of get a list of the or get an idea of what we're trying to accomplish here, right? So list item content with the title and the subtitle inside there. Let's go ahead, take a look, subtitle, and just to give you an idea, if you want to break off here and you want to go build this independently, you can do that. Right, so this is approximately what it's going to look like with some bits and bobs there and here, right? You don't have to include the subtitle and stuff like that. And these vlists, it's going to realign automatically. It's Vuetify, it's dynamic. It's awesome, okay? Because this is a list and we want to be using our feed for this list, okay? Let's go ahead and initiate that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in some mixins into here, and we're going to say feed. Let's go ahead, import the feed. And for now, I don't think there is any order that we have to follow. Let's go ahead into the feed, and one thing that we will need to do is to override the get content URL. Let's go ahead, grab that, and we are going to go into the methods here, and we're going to go override that so we can actually grab the content, right? So let's go ahead and return this URL right here. So API moderation items, that is what we want with the query, okay? And that is what is going to be used. So this async fetch thing, I don't think this really matters that much. I think we can initialize it here. The data doesn't matter too much. Let's take a look at the feed again and where we have the content. So instead of items, we want content, and we will say mod item here, okay? And again, it may look a little bit wonky here, but remember that it is actually coming, all this stuff is coming from the mixin, okay? So load content on the server, I don't think this will be a problem anymore. We can actually do this on the server now because we have fixed our stuff related to cookie authentication and stuff like that, right? So on here, let's go ahead and say when this is fetched, we can actually say return this load content. Yeah, there we go. So let's go ahead and take a look that this still works. So coming back to, okay, so that looks a little bit messed up. Let's go ahead and fix this up. Again, refresh this. Okay, and there we go. So there's our content feed. We can go ahead and, implement the load more and stuff like that. For now, we will leave it alone, and we will keep going at moving more stuff into here to be shared between this moderation view and the one where we actually go here and look at this moderation view. Okay, so let's come back here and keep looking at this screen here. For now, coming back to the code, we're gonna go into the mod ID page, and all this stuff that we have here, let's go ahead, pull it out into the mixin and reuse it. So we're gonna go into web components, and we're gonna go into, let's actually create just a JavaScript file here, and we're just gonna say moderation. Okay, let's go ahead and export default. I think actually we don't need to do it like that. We can just do default object, and I think that will be more than okay. What I will do is I will just say all this stuff that's here, let's go ahead, cut it on the moderation here. Let's go ahead, paste it maybe somewhere above here. And then let's go ahead and say methods. We'll say review status icon. Icon? Okay, that was one of the weirdest ways to say that. And endpoint resolver. Export const review status, that as well. And export default, I think let's say const mod item renderer. Okay, and we can assign this to this, right? So it's something that's going to be rendering a moderation item, so it will need to handle all this review stuff. So basically that's the reason for the name, okay? And it's sort of one centralized place to handle all of this. Now, let's go ahead and utilize this here. So let's open this up, and here in the mixins, let's go ahead and say render, I think, what did I call it? Mod item renderer. Okay, there we go. Okay, so since I've called it mod item renderer, put a comma here, and all this stuff that I have here, now we basically, well, we get it for free. The review status, we will actually have to import it from there. So in addition to the mod item renderer, we import the review status as well. Okay, so the endpoint resolver, let's not forget to call it like this. Let's also Control F to make sure that we don't need to call it anywhere else. Quickly have a look through the file, see if there are any more errors on here. If not, cool, let's go ahead and move on. So close this one. Again, come back here and let's go ahead and add another mixin, so mod item renderer. And I think we'll need the enum as well in a second, but let's go ahead and just proceed with building this up. We will need to go into the moderation item controller for this, as we've converted it to a feed, and we are gonna need to get a little bit more stuff in order to do this, right? Let's go right all the way to the top, and here where we're getting all these moderation items, let's go ahead and do this. So let's assign this here. And just so you understand the main problem that we're going to face here, because the relationships on the moderation items, if we go in here, is dynamic. So we don't know the exact type of the target. Well, we do through the string, but the problem is that through Entity Framework, it will be a little bit hard to figure out what exact relationship we want to pick. So this is how we're going to do it. First, we're going to select the moderation item. And at the point where we display the moderation items, what I actually want to do is I actually want to also say include reviews. Let's not forget that we actually, from query, feed query, right? We've turned this into a query. And now we want to order the feed with feed query. We don't actually have an order for the moderation items per se. So for now, we're just going to keep it as is. We're not going to update this into anything just yet. What I want to actually do is figure out for every moderation item that we get, we want to select the related sort of targets, right? Because potentially there might be more than just a trick that we could be moderating. So if we have 10 items at a time, we may want to reduce the amount of queries that we do. So let's go ahead and see how we can do this. So moderation items, we can go ahead and group by the type, okay? So once we have grouped by the type, we can say, right, so if it's a single type, we can get a collection of keys and produce an SQL in statement, which is going to be more efficient than doing a bunch of queries. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to select many. So we're going to have many groups, and those many groups, we just want to turn them into targets that could link up back to our moderation items, okay? So if you're confused by that a little bit, you may want to replay it. Otherwise, just keep watching and hopefully it will make sense. For each group, if the key will be moderation types, we only have trick for now, so that's fine. in the context here, we want to grab tricks and we want to say where the tricks are in a collection of IDs of some sort, right? Because they can be pointing to different things. So what we want to do here is say something like var target IDs, and from the group we want to go ahead and select the targets, right? And we can, what's it called, to array this. Okay, so these are now all the target IDs. Let me remove the comma here, and the X is actually, let's change it to T here. So maybe it's actually a moderation item, so let's put an M here. So for every moderation item, we want to grab the target, so we're going to have a target IDs here. So now we want to say target IDs contains x.id, okay? And then we want to select, and we want to go into tricks view models. And I don't think we have anything kind of small-ish, so we will need to clean this up, I believe, but for now let's go ahead and just grab this, and we're gonna introduce a more flatter or slimmer version. So let's go ahead and just introduce a flat projection here, so kind of the same concept. So create flat, and there we go, right? So we still keep the user, we will just call it flat because it's kind of one level, okay? Ignoring the user bit, but never, not so important, right? Let's go ahead and include the user so we can actually, render the user information for what kind of user has actually, provoked this content or is asking for this change, right? So on the tricks view model, let's go ahead and grab our flat projection. And again, as always, if you're worried about performance, if you want to leave a comment with improvements, go ahead. Again, as long as this is not a problem, as long as I don't see the visual problem, I'm gonna say so it's okay. Okay, right? So let's go ahead to list this. So we execute the query. Let's go ahead and make sure that we change these X's to T's to make sure that we denote tricks. And when we to list this, what we want to do is we actually just want to return this, okay? So this is going to return a bunch of objects if we do not meet any of the requirements. So if this could be maybe some other objects, let's go ahead and just say enumerable, and we'll say empty object collection, right? And there we go. So essentially our groups of items that we could potentially moderate are going to sprout into their individual targets, right? So we are going to call these targets. I mean, they are the targets. So now what we have to do is we have to put our targets in the moderation items, and I've decided to actually do that on the UI part. What's really going to happen here is we're going to say return the object, and the actual object that we're going to return is a new object here, and we're going to say moderation items. Let me scroll down a little bit so you can see. It's a big function at this point. Well, relatively big. And we'll say just put in these moderation items here. But actually for the moderation view models that we have, let's go ahead and create the projection. And what do we have here? So we have with reviews. One thing about these reviews is they contain a user. So let me check real quick in this projection. It doesn't have a user. So I think the de facto is going to be that we are going to say that the review should be displaying the user, right? So we want that icon, we want it to look pretty. So let's go ahead and grab the user. So we'll have a user view models, and we'll create a flat projection. I think this is what we want. So no, we want create flat, So the cache is a little bit confusing. I feel like we will comment it out at some point, and I feel like it's probably worth to separate it. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're gonna delete this one, and we're gonna say with user projection, and we're gonna put this here and create with user. So the other one stays. I don't know when we might want to use this, maybe at some point, but nevertheless, let's go ahead and keep going. So coming back to the moderation item controller, what we want to do is, these are actually going to be, this is actually a collection, right? So we want to select things from here. So moderation, view models, we want to go ahead and select a projection, but a projection that has reviews, and this will actually have the reviews in all of them. So I think we want a simpler version of this. So let's go ahead and put this here. And again, we'll just call this one flat. So flat projection. Flat projection. And the reviews specifically, we don't want them to be super informative. So what we're going to do is, let's go ahead and call this flat. On the reviews as queryable, instead of selecting the whole shebang, what we're going to do is we're going to say select me the status. So it's going to be 0, 1. So what's the vote? And that's going to be the collection of the reviews. So that's going to be the flat projection. So this is going to be a flat projection. And that's where I think we can to list this. So on here, the flat projection, let's go ahead and say create flat. That's what we actually want. And the last thing is we want targets. And here we'll say targets, okay? Semicolon at the end. And once this is received on the front end, we can zip this up, okay? So the hardest part about this is that on the feed, this bit is kind of doing the content pushing for us. So what we want to do is we want to sort of redirect the parsing of the content, okay? So let's go ahead and say parse content, where we can go ahead, put the content in and do something here. And in our case, that something is going to be this thing right here, which is what we were doing, right? So all this does is it lets us again override the thing that we were doing before, okay? Kind of, we still have the baseline, so we're not breaking any functionality for or all the previous stuff. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to override this. So let's go ahead and create a parse content where we're going to have the content. Because what the content is now going to have are, if we go into the moderations controller, moderation item and targets, okay? And just note that these are going to be lower cases, and we're going to extract this from the content, okay? So this content, moderation items, super easy. However, now what we actually want to do is we want to say map them, okay? And this is going to get mapped to a new item where we're going to expand the X. So it's going to be that same old moderation item. However, let's go ahead and also put the target object on here, right? So target object, we're going to say from targets, we want to go ahead and find, because this item is going to be there because we mapped it, we got it from the query. So this item should always be there. If not, potentially throw an error, but never mind. So let's take this type target TID. So that's going to be the trick ID. And then we want to compare that to the, what's it called, the target on the moderation item, because that's going to be the ID to the target, right? So it's pointing to the target, and the actual target ID is where the target's pointing. Hopefully that's not too confusing, but that's where the object is going to land, and all of that stuff is going to get filled into the content. So this is how we basically zip this stuff up. JavaScript, just with the deconstruction right here, this is just such a powerful feature to make it right in one line. It's just so much easier to do it on the browser. And I think that is basically it. So what's going to happen now, let's go ahead and give this a refresh. Hopefully it's not going to crash too much. So we still haven't signed in, but that's not a big problem. Moderation, actually, let me preserve log. Let me turn off the preserve log, clear this, and I'll just refresh the whole thing. Can we, I don't think we have the logs for that thing, but let's go ahead and go into the index page here. And we're just going to take a look at the state that we have for the content. We have one object, and this is just to kind of get an idea that we do have our trick, the backflip, and the user that created it on this object, and now we can start extracting this information. Okay, so let's go ahead and do just that. So on the list right here, the V icon, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and provide a user header. And in here, what we're going to utilize just binding the image URL. Because remember, the user header isn't just the user header, it's the super magical mystery component where, you know, these are not required, where we might want to omit some stuff sometimes. So that's what we're doing this time. We're omitting some stuff. So mod item, that's the thing that we are iterating. It's going to have a target object. Target object is going to have the user, and the user is going to have the image. Right, let's take a look. And there it is, right? There's that game. Now, a couple other things. Let's go ahead and grab this target object here. We're gonna put it here, and we're gonna put the name of the thing that we're working on. So this time we're working on the backflip. Below, what I wanted to do is I wanted to put a reason. So in case it's a change, I want them to specify what's the reason, well, like what's the reason for the change. So it's kind of a summary. So you can basically go in. It's kind of like the title on the Stack Overflow. Same thing. We're just gonna quickly pause on that because we're gonna go change models and stuff like that. I wanna do something here first. So before we do that, actually, let's just flesh it out. No harm. What I want to do is I just want to say something like reason here and display this only if we have the reason. The thing that we have here, let's go ahead, put a span in here. And this span specifically, what we want to do is we want to take a look at the version item. And if you're thinking like, why this specifically? So when I'm going to look at the table, I want to kind of pick the most important bits about this piece of information and kind of realize, do I want to go in there and moderate? Do I even want to see what this is about? Does it involve my favorite trick? Is it the sort of change that I approve? When is it? Is it old? Is it active? Is it what is happening? Is it something being changed? Is it new? So that's basically that's the kind of thinking process that I'm trying to get into. If I'm saying like, do I need to display this information on the UI? Who's going to find this useful? Okay. So here we're going to be displaying two things, and primarily we're going to be comparing. Is the version 1? That means it's new. Otherwise, it is change. Okay. Let's go ahead and bind the color, and we're going to do the same thing here. So let's go ahead and drop this down because this is going to get quite big. Let's go ahead, copy this, put this here, and I don't think span has color, so let's actually put text here, and we're gonna say for this it's going to be green text. For this one it's going to be orange text. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like, and there is the new. So another thing I think we want is text H6, so just make it a little bigger, make it pop, right? It's new. Okay. In terms of this information, so it's a backflip. If there's going to be other stuff, if there's going to be a reason, that's going to be there. So speaking about the reason, right, we don't have it here currently. So let's go ahead and work our way through to adding it, okay? So as most things, they start on the form that we want to submit. So, I mean, start at the beginning at the UI. This is where the user is at. This is where the user is going to input this information. What we want to do is we want to copy a text field, and here where we have the save, let's go ahead and just pop it here, right? And we will say reason for change, okay? And we're going to say on the form, reason, just put the reason on the form, okay? We don't always want to display this field, so we only want to display it when we're editing. And we got this boolean here, so let's go ahead and say vif editing, and let's make sure that we have the what did we say, reason on the form, reason, so it's empty. And now we want to disable this, so we're gonna say something like disabled, and disabled only if we're editing, and the constraint will be, I mean, a good reason is something like length less than 5 characters, so less than or equals 5, right? 5 characters is probably not a reason. If you start typing out, like, you might save it with a reason. We've put the thing on the form. Let's go ahead and include it on the trick form, the thing that we're gonna send. Let's go ahead, add a reason here. The thing that's gonna process it, trick controller. On the trick controller where we update, let's go ahead and put the reason on the moderation item. This doesn't really matter. The moderation item is the thing that matters. So let's go ahead and say reason, trick form, reason, okay? And let's go ahead and actually add to do validation for reason. And I guess validation for other stuff, but I guess if I'm making validation on this on the UI part, we still haven't, put a lot of validation anywhere really, but we need to take care of that. But yeah, for now, this reason, let's go ahead and copy the name. We'll go in the moderation item, copy the type. So I'm pressing Ctrl D to copy these, and there's the reason, right? So we're adding a property there. Another thing that we have that we didn't really put on here is the user. So let's go ahead and put the vote. So in case we need the user, we know we can put it here, and maybe we'll rename the vote to something like user interactive content, but for now let's keep it like this. So user ID, just put it here on the tricks controller. When we do supply the reason user ID, just pop the user ID on here as well. Okay, so in case we want to switch to displaying the user, we don't need to like backport data or anything like that, because at the moment we are grabbing the user for the tricks that we're assigning for the moderation items. We might switch there, so that is still in the air. That should put the reason on there in the end, theoretically. Actually, moderation view models, let's go ahead and make sure that we bring the reason out, right? Copy that, bring it here, cool. So that should put the reason on there if it's going to be there. What are the next things that we want to do? So on the base model, the other thing that I want to do is, you see we have this created. I want to do updated, and I really think let's bring the vote out and let's really rename it to maybe mutable content, right? So we're gonna mutate it. So let's grab this updated. Let's put it on here. Let's go ahead and go back to the moderation item. Let's remove the user that we have on here. Let's grab the base model, and we'll say that it's mutable, okay? And the updated bit, let's go ahead and say that in the moderations controller, whenever we submit a review, that is the last time that it's being updated. So we're gonna have our mod item here, updated equals date time now. Make sure that we bring in UTC now as actually, right? So that's that. And now on the moderation view model, let's actually display this as well. So on here, we are going to have the updated, and we are going to say something like is there a local time, and to string, and again we're just going to say This could probably be an extension function, although I don't think it would understand it here, so let's just keep putting it out. So day, month, year. Okay, this is going to be updated. When was this updated? And let's go ahead and put this here. Okay, copy the content, put it on the end. We're gonna say last updated. Remove this and updated. And actually, let me copy this thing and let me put it here as well. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. Okay, so it's slowly taking shape, at least. Well, I prefer looking at it now as well. So let's go ahead and add another section, and this section specifically is going to be like a little reviews section. So let's go ahead, delete that. Let's put a div on here, and we're gonna have a class of deflex, and this is only going to display the if mod item. has reviews length more than 0. And I think we want justify end, and in here we'll say another div with yeah, maybe that will be fine. That will be fine. So we'll grab the icon from the reviews, or we can call it review. So let's call it review, and the review specifically is going to be that state. So where we had in the mod ID, I think we've put the icon somewhere here. Yeah. So this icon, very useful. Let's go ahead and put it here. Instead of the status, the review itself is the status. So that's just something not to get confused in, because remember, in the moderation view model, on the flat one, we are just selecting the status. We cannot go into the review. The reviews are the statuses. Close the mod ID, because I mean, looking at that will be a lost cause at this point. So otherwise, if there is nothing there, let's go ahead and display another div with the VLs. We'll copy the classes because I kind of want to make it display in the same place. And we'll say waiting review, or maybe waiting for review. And that is basically it. Let's go ahead and see what this is going to look like with a change. So test, password. And it was probably worth going in as a moderator, but I don't think that functionality is going to work right now. So backflip, let's go ahead and edit this. Next, reason for change. There it is. Okay. Save. Okay. So now if we go to the moderation, we can see one change with the reason, and that's basically how it looks. Okay. So going over to the next part, where we're actually seeing the moderation item and we're going through the review process. For this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out, and I'm going to log in as a mod, right? And there is going to be my pretty judge image, right? And there it is. Let's go ahead and do some judging. Some specific things that we actually want to address. So let me go ahead and open this. Let's grab the URL. We'll open the console, and we're just going to address a few issues that arise when we're not signed in. So the first one is the comments, because we're not signed in, right? Where is it? Okay, so let's close everything, because otherwise I'll get confused. Where are you looking? Okay, so I'll just execute the build real quick, you know, no big. Yeah, so we're now in the mod ID space, and specifically we want to take a look at the comment section first. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to use if auth, our trusty if auth, right? Let's get the template in here with the v slot allowed. If you're allowed, guess what? Comment section. That's right. Template v slot forbidden. Guess what? V button. Yeah, boy. So v button outlined. Click. We want. Oh my god! If only. Oh no, we got the function as well. Sign in to join the discussion. Okay. Let's go ahead and put maybe a little bit of a header here. Yeah, let's put a div class, and we'll say text. What's a good h4, and we'll say change discussion. Okay. And that's basically maybe what, yeah, maybe that needs to be, yeah. Let's go ahead and maybe supply a div here, and we're gonna say that it's a, what's it called, class deflex, and justify center. So just to remind you, styling work is hard work. So there it is, right? A little bit hard to see, but let's go ahead and actually add a v divider here. Let's make it self-closing, class mxy2, so margin on top and bottom 2, to get a little bit of separation here. Okay, So there's the separation. If you want to join the discussion, you can. We no longer get the error, so let's go ahead and refresh this page and see if we get any errors. We get the unauthorized error, but we can actually go ahead and remove that console log here, because I mean, it doesn't really serve too much purpose. Okay, maybe a linting error in the future, so just keep that function empty. Close that, and while we're here, let's quickly just break this to 5, 2, and 5, so 10 plus 2. Just make this a little bit bigger here, and we actually, let's go ahead and use a V sheet here. So we're gonna make it look more like a card, and then class padding all 3. So that was actually Nuxtjs' idea. I now look at the, basically I decided to start practicing these tutorials on my stream. So if you're interested in these tutorials and you would kind of like to know my pattern of thinking or ask some questions, go ahead and ask for the stream role on the Discord server. So link is in the description to Discord and to my stream. Okay, so one thing, that card is not rounded. Let's go ahead and make it rounded, and there it is. Okay, so that's rounded. The button is there to log into update or whatever. What are we looking at? Is this the, okay, so that was the not signed in. Okay, so other than that, I think this is fine. Let's go ahead, close this. Now the attention on this bit right here. I mean, it already looks awful. And anyway, what are we gonna do about it? First thing is the reviews. So the reviews count right here. I don't like it at all. The v text, so the no reviews, that is fine. Let's go ahead and display that only when we have no reviews, and that's pretty much what happens right now. What I want to happen actually is, let's go ahead and have a div here, or did I want to, yeah, let's have a div, another div here. So we're gonna separate it into 2 parts. In the first part, we're gonna put the avatar. So class dflex, and do we need justify send? No, we don't know. So in the first part, let's go ahead and provide a v badge. Okay, and this is gonna look cool. You're gonna like this, right? V avatar, and in the v avatar we want the image, and I think actually no, we want our user header. Do we have the user header in there? No, we don't. So user header, we're gonna make it self-closing, and we are only gonna provide the image URL again. So this is going to be based on the review. So review, user, and image. Okay, so I don't think we have, or how do we get this, right? Let's take a look at how we get the reviews. So, okay, so currently the reviews are present on the moderation item. That is not what we want to do. Moderation item, moderation item controller. Let's go to where we get, so when we were getting the moderation item, let's go ahead and remove the reviews from here. Okay, so if we go into the projection, the reviews should no longer be happening. Okay, so instead what we're going to do is we're gonna get the reviews this way. So we're gonna get it from this endpoint here, and here we're going to include our user. We're gonna say we're gonna return an object, because the thing that we want to do is we want to select a review view model, and we want to create a with user projection. Okay, so I mean we're gonna get all that stuff, so that's pretty good, and I think that's pretty much it. So back on the mod ID, what we're going to do is, I think we can use the moderation item. So let's go ahead and this send comment is actually not needed here, because we are sending the comment in the comment section, right? So that was just complete bogus. Let's go ahead and add a load reviews, and in here what we're going to do is we're gonna have something I think very similar to this. Let's go ahead and return this, and on the moderation items reviews, what we want to do is we want to get instead, and let's just put just that much, and reviews push. I think this reviews equals reviews. Okay, so we can just map all the reviews to the reviews. Not a big problem. And specifically where we want this to happen is maybe somewhere here after. So let's do it on when we fetch. So this created right here, let's change it to fetch. And right here, we're gonna say that this load reviews. Okay, so alongside all the other stuff, we load the reviews as well. To assign the reviews, we'll actually have to remove this computer property here and put it on here. And let's say that this is going to be an empty array. Okay, so when we get the moderation item, we initiate the load reviews as well. And the mod ID, this mod item.id. And that's how we're going to get the reviews. Okay. One thing about is when we create the review, let's go ahead and actually this.load reviews instead of trying to return some kind of review and append it and whatnot. Let's just return okay here. Let's not do all this review malarkey stuff. Okay, creating, appending, just reload the whole thing, the whole shebang. Okay, let's go ahead and see if there's any problems with that first. So just quickly giving that a reload, test, approve, and there we go. Okay. So that's how it looks for now. Let's go back up here and quickly fix this up. So vBadge, what we want to do is we want to template something in here, or actually, no, never mind. We want to supply the icon here. And the icon that we're going to supply is going to be this icon here, so this function. So this is going to go inside the badge, and in here we're also going to have color. The color, you guessed it, we can also put this here. And for the rest of the stuff, I want bottom, and I think it was right, and I say overlap, so it's going to be really close. Yeah, so this stuff is going to be missing. The divs I actually wanted there. Let's go ahead and put this here like that for now. Okay, so overlap isn't happening, or what is the problem? Okay, so we got a little bit too much padding on the user header, I think. So yeah, so this padding right here. Let's go ahead and remove this padding. This might cause problems elsewhere, but we will be adding this padding around other places. So for example, like this created here. So anywhere where we spot this stuff, we are going to fix this. So trick info card, where we have the user header. Let's go ahead, class padding all 2. Okay, and that should move back into its rightful place. Cool. So coming back to the mod ID, again, taking a look at this, this is what it's going to look like. So if you've approved the review, I mean, this is you, okay? So otherwise, the username and stuff, let's go ahead and display this here. So let's take a look where we grab the image. Let's also grab the username. Okay, and then let's also grab another div here. And the thing that we want to display is actually this span here. Let's just make sure that we make it a div. Okay, delete the username and just put this here like this. So one's on top, one's below. You can see they're a little bit too close. So on this div right here, let's just put a class margin right 3. I think that will be a good amount. And yeah, so there it is. So the name of the user is not that important. I think the comment that they say will be a little bit more important. So let's go ahead and give this white text and maybe make it a little bit bigger. So body 1 like that. So maybe that's gonna, yeah, so just slightly bigger, and I think that's about it. The last thing that I want here, and with a V spacer, do I actually want anything? Let's go take a look at it. I think for now, that I think this will do. I think that's okay. So yeah, if we won't have any reviews, that should not display. And if we go here you can see a little tick here. Okay, so we can indicate like this is progress or not, probably. Let's actually change that. Let's go to the index page on the moderation pages, and we will add another div on here, which we're gonna say review status. Here we're gonna say waiting, and otherwise it's going to be the checks. So review status, I think we can just go ahead and say center, maybe, or deflex end. I think that might be okay. And yeah, maybe, yeah, it kind of makes this end not feel so lonely. So I think it's okay if we just push it all to the side there. So coming back to the moderation ID, this bit right here, I don't like it. Let's go ahead and rework it. So again, close everything and work only with the stuff that we can see in front of us. This divider right here is fine. One thing that I'm gonna say is, what if we have something like I don't know, let's say while we are still working here, another approve, yeah, and another approve. That means the change is now approved, but let's go ahead and actually change it while we are still working with it. So this right here, margin bottom, let's give it a 2 and see what that does. I think that spaces it out quite all right. Let's go ahead and do a change on the backend. So moderation item, just put a space here, save it, so you know we get the item back. And let's take a look, review status waiting, and yeah, let's try to approve, maybe put a comment, reject, come back here, to the moderation, right? So there is that stuff. And okay, so overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the icons and the icons popping out there and stuff like that. Coming back to the moderation ID, the part where we have the actions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scrap the actions, and the actual thing that I'm going to do is the review comment that we're doing here. All of that is, you know, bogus. I'm gonna drop in a vSelect in here, and what we're going to do is we're gonna vModel the review. So let's go ahead and create a review, and we're gonna create an init review. This is going to be a function. So const init review function that's going to evaluate to something that should have a comment, and the comment should be empty. So are we doing any comment on the review? And the status, so what is the status? And I think that should be -1 to start with. So remember that it's an enum that we're selecting there, right? And init review is what we're assigning it to the start. So this is so we can reset it. And let's actually go ahead and say reset review form. We're gonna say this review equals init review. Okay, and this is something that we can actually do in places like this. Okay, so when we reset it, we can then, after we load the reviews, we can reset the form as well after we've created it. So coming back to where we were right here on the vSelect, the vModel, the actual items that I actually want to bind here. So first of all, let's go ahead and bind review.status, and the items that we're going to bind are, well, let's go ahead and change them up a little bit here where we have had the array. So this one right here, let's go ahead and just change this all to text. This is going to be value. And disabled, let's go ahead and say comment required. Okay, something a little bit more descriptive. We're gonna say true here, and we're gonna say true here. Okay, so the review actions are the things that are gonna get put into here, and we are going to override something on something. I'm going to show you what we're going to override. vSlot, here we're going to go into the item itself, and here we're going to deconstruct on and attr, I think that it is that we need. The thing that we're going to supply here is the vList item. That's the thing that we want to override, and specifically the reason why I'm overriding it. And let's actually, I think we can grab the item itself. So the item itself is one of these guys, all right, one of these review actions that we're binding here. So the vList item, the on I think we just want to put the on here, and attr, I think we just want to say attr on here as well. I don't know if they have to be attrs or attr, I can't remember exactly, but the point is, I think, is that we want the v list item title, the v list item, and we want the contents as well, v list item content. Put the title in here. Make sure that we go ahead and display it. So item dot text, the value that we have on here. Let's go ahead and make sure that we bind it to the value of the item as well. And now the actual like the icon that we want to display, kind of similar to how we did it on the index form there. What we want to do is we want to display the avatar here, and avatar, the avatar, do we want to, yeah, let's go ahead and put it in the v avatar, and here we can do the icon, and well, the v icon we have a function, don't we? Let's go ahead and review status icon. Let's grab it here, pop it here, and actually put it into these curly braces. Right, let's go ahead and quickly take a look at what this looks like. So there we have it, a bunch of errors, so we're missing some stuff. I think these should be attrs, so let's just put attrs on here, and just gonna save that. Let's just quickly take a look at the console, see what it's saying. Duplicate keys, RA undefined, so where are we using RA? So just quickly on here, and these buttons. Okay, so that is fine for now. The vcard actions, we can just go ahead and, you know, get rid of that. Outdated bit is, I think, is totally fine, although on the vcard, if outdated, I think we should only be displaying it maybe if we are somewhere here. Let's just pop it here under no reviews, or maybe we'll just replace the whole thing with it, but for now, just let it float about here. Okay, and let's see where this brings us. So we'll just pop it there. It doesn't matter too much where it is. The outdated, let's just leave it there. With this bit here, the item content, the item title, the avatar, icon, yep, so that should technically, maybe let's remove the avatar and let's just stay with the icon. Maybe that is going to give us our stuff, and no, it doesn't. What is wrong? Actually, is there? Yeah, so okay, so the icon component, that should be displaying there. Let's quickly take a look at the mod component. That's probably renamed now. Let's get rid of this text field as well. We don't need it here. So apologies, I know this is a long episode. We got, again, let's quickly refresh this. Having it, okay, so there it is. So let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at the computer properties. So review actions, we got the value 0, 1, and whatnot, so that's fine. Let's take a look at the, I think it's vcard, vselect. What do we have in here? V icon, v messages, v menu, v select list, v list item, v icon. Can't see the actual icon that we, yeah, that's a weird one. And I am a complete moron. So the reason that we don't get this is I'm just not passing the value, right? We don't have access to the review. I'm not sure why we didn't get the error, but okay, so there's our stuff there. We can go ahead and, you know, bind the color as well. Why not? We got the function. Let's go ahead and do it. What we're not going to do this time is forget to use item.value. Okay, let's go ahead, pop this here, and I think let's see if we can not use this HTML element here. I'm all for it, you know. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So no reviews, preferably. Let's go ahead and class dflex, and we're gonna say justify center. And I'm thinking now, this select bit, we only want to display this if it's not outdated. So the else here, okay? Another thing about this whole thing is, let's go ahead and wrap this in a div. And what we're going to do is we are going to go into our computed. We're going to bring out our map getters, and we're gonna have the auth, and we're gonna grab the moderator. Yep, we have navigation. Let's go ahead and make sure that we have the import, so JavaScript is happy. And we'll only display this if it's a moderator. So vf moderator, okay. So only if the user is moderator, they're even going to be able to see this menu and stuff like that. So for the label for this, what is this actually meant to say? So label, we want to either update our current review or we want to create the review. So let's go ahead and take a look at something like, to start with, we'll do create review, or we'll just say review. And yeah, so we can do one of these things. So what do we want to do when we do one of these things? We want to create a v dialog. And with this v dialog, we will do something like bind value. And the value that we're going to bind is the review status. So if the review status is more than or equals 0, because otherwise by default it is set to -1, the v dialog is not going to display. So once we click on this, the dialog is going to pop up. Okay. So let's go ahead and make this persistent. The other thing that we're going to do here is let's go ahead and set the width to maybe like 400. And here we're going to have a vcard. Could have probably been a vtext, but or a vsheet. And let's get a vtext field in here. And this is where we're going to bind the comment. Okay. So a vmodel review comment. So vmodel review, and we will say comment, and then vcard vtext field. We want a vcard text field, and then let's go ahead and get the actions as well. And on the actions, we'll just have a v button. We'll have two of them. One will say cancel. We'll say something like text. Copy this. We will have the, let's say we want the active or selected review. So let's get selected review. We will say const review equals this review actions. And these review actions, what we want to do with them, we want to select the one that we're currently selecting. I know this may sound confusing, but this way that we can get the title and we can display what kind of actions we want to perform. So approve, reject, wait, and we get the status, and we can do in all different types of colors, right? So we want to find where value of the x equals to what we currently have selected. Okay, so we're going to find that, and we're going to return a review. If it's undefined, return null, because then it's going to be a little bit easier. Otherwise, return review, right? So the thing that we have. So this the selected review. Now what we can do is we can do selected review dot text, and that will basically display the button. So the button itself, the color of the button. Well, guess what? The review status, we can go ahead and actually, where is it? Review status color. We can bind it here and put the review status in here as well. Okay, for the selected review, we can also do something like drop this to a new line, add a disabled, and we'll say selected review dot comment required, and selected review. Or not selected review, sorry, review comment. So the actual comment that we have here, we want to say length is maybe less than 5. So when it's required, disable it if you know the comment is quite small. Yeah, quite small. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we got. This loads, so we got logged out. We'll take a look at what this is later. So comment required of null, cannot read property, comment required of null. So selected review, it would be null. So this is where discard. Let's go ahead and say if selected review, if we got that. So we'll give this a refresh. Let's go ahead and we'll say reject. The button should say reject, so when we type this in, that's there. Let's go ahead and put a V spacer here, just to make it look prettier. There wasn't no padding and no label on there as well, so let's go ahead and just add padding top. I think 4 will do, and the label on here that I want will say a review comment. Okay, and we'll delete this, so like that. Just make sure that we're not trying to bind a variable there. Review comment, that goes with the review that we got here. This is the actual bit that we want to be passing. So this dot review dot comment. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with the status. Okay, and the rest of the stuff pretty much stays the same. The create review, we no longer need to pass the status here. Let's go ahead and bind the onClick event here. So onClick, create review, format this, and there we go, right? The cancel, we have the reset review form. So let's go ahead and bind it here. Click, reset review form, and there it is. So yeah, this is pretty much what it looks like. If we have an approve, we'll say test, approve, there we go. If we have a reject, test, it says it, reject, right? One thing is we can vote twice. Let's go ahead and remove that. Let's say that we can only vote once. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to put. Let's go ahead and go to the moderation and control. I'm pretty sure we used this strategy before. We'll change this to put to retain the meaning. And to make this async safe. Okay, so that's still something that we need to do, but let's go ahead and grab the review, context, reviews, select, and select. We'll do first or default. And we'll say where moderation item ID, those are the only things that we have, equal to ID. And X user ID equals to, I think it's user ID, yeah. So here we would select our review. Let's go ahead and remove this, and we'll say if review is null, that's when we want to go ahead and, you know, add this review like this. Otherwise we're tracking it, and let me put this on one line actually, I think that will be all right. Otherwise, let's go ahead and these two changes, we will update them here. So let's go ahead and say something like review here, right? Comment. So there it is, assigning the comments, the thing that we're going to be updating. I think there are still a little bit more rules that we can put around this, but for now, I think we'll just leave it as is, okay? And if you're wondering what rules, if it's like one is rejecting, one is approving waiting, do we stop the attemption for migrations and stuff like that? So just, you know, general stuff surrounding that process. Okay, here, let's go ahead and try to approve this. So yeah, we approve. Maybe we need a comment, maybe we don't. Let's try to make a really long one. We'll do reject, and there we go, right? So you can see we are overriding the comment. Let's have something that maybe is going to indicate that we need to, or maybe do we need to indicate? I think, you know, this was a long enough episode. We might do it as part of a polish, but for now I will end this torture. Right, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe. Any questions, leave them in the comment section. As always, I mentioned this one. Stream on Twitch Wednesdays, Sundays, other days as well. Join Discord server. Ask for the stream squad role, so you know I get put notification. You find out about the stream. You come along and you have a good time, right? Everybody wins. With that said, have a good day, and I'll see you in the next episode.